Streaming live via the internet, welcome to ISP Radio, your weekly source for ISP-related news, events, and interviews with industry experts. If you deliver internet via fiber optic, fixed wireless, coax, or any other way, you're in the right place. And now a brief word from our sponsors. Link Technologies Incorporated provides the lowest priced Microtech products in North America, as well as Wade Towers, Mimosa, Cambium, Ubiquity, Nettonics, and a host of other products and services to be your one-stop shop for your ISP needs. Visit www.linktechs.net. That's LINKTECHS.net for more information. TowerCoverage.com, providing online RF coverage maps with website integration. Stop rolling your trucks for every site survey and start doing installations. Visit www.towercoverage.com now. And now we'd like to present our hosts, Steve Graybiel and Dennis Burgess.
Welcome to another edition of ISP Radio. Real grateful to be back on the air again, and hopefully this show will be all you think it will be. Well, out here in New Mexico, it's been 88 days before our last measurable amount of rain, and you poor folks on the East Coast and Midwest have been flooded, I've seen. We could sure use some of that water over here, so why don't you send some our way. Been wrapping up a fiber optic project, hopefully tie in 4 more people to my fiber to the home network today, and just muddling along. Had a lightning strike on a relay, and I hate it when lightning strikes happen because some equipment works, some doesn't. So you try to put together what works, but then eventually it all fails. So I'm probably going to have to end up replacing all the equipment on it, which is a bummer. But it is what it is. So, Dennis, how's it going in your neck of the woods? Are you guys been flooded? Is it hot and humid there?
No. Right now, over this past weekend, Memorial Day weekend, it was gorgeous. It was like 93, 94. Low humidity for the most part, so that worked out really good. We did have a couple rain showers, but nothing substantial. Right now, it's, I think, 81 outside, low humidity, beautiful day. So
yeah.
We have that hurricane, Andrew, or whatever that is, that's going up the east coast of Illinois and Indiana right now, and it's kind of shooting some rain this way, but it's not getting here.
Right. So is it a huge swath from the coast as far inland as you guys?
Well, no. I mean, like the center of the low pressure system is literally in Illinois and Indiana right now. It's literally in we're just right at the edge of the rain zone type stuff. So it isn't really. I mean, it's sunshiny out and nice right now.
Right. Well, before the show, we were talking about the big to do about consumer routers and stuff that the FBI and the Homeland Security were telling people what to do. I kind of find it funny because I had some customers tell me about this, and I go, we took care of that like a couple months ago. The federal government's usually 2 or 3 months behind the curve.
Yep.
What do you have to say about that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, every manufacturer is going to have not necessarily bugs, but security holes. And it doesn't matter. I mean, look at Microsoft, how many security holes they have, but look at their dominance in the market. Whoever dominates in the market is the one that's going to have more security holes. And the reason for that is because now you have devices out there that can be attacked, and you have enough of them in enough quantity that, hey, maybe it's worth a hacker's time to do something like that. Make sense? So yeah. It's just like the same thing with Macs. They say Macs don't get viruses. Well, no, that's just because Macs are such a small user portion that most people or most hackers or people who wish to do bad things, they don't really feel that that's a really good use of their time to try to invent or try to create a virus that would only infect maybe 10% of the actual computing population. So, it's the same story as always. Microtech has been upfront, honest, and has said, here's the fix, here's everything we need to do. And if you, as a network operator, have not secured your WinBox and Port 80 ports already, that should be standard operating procedure. As soon as you get a new router, you secure those ports. then it's kind of up to you to do that. My recommendation is that that needs to be done as a standard operating procedure, and then you should be fine. Most of our customers were not even affected, and we did not have to upgrade the routers because we already had ACLs to block most of that traffic. However, there are a few users out there that we had to go ahead and do upgrades or implement the ACL blocks pretty quickly. And we did have some customers that wanted us to check over their network, make sure everything was good, and of course, typically it is.
How about like Ubiquiti routers? Were they a target of any of this C2?
I don't believe they were of this round, but if you recall, about 2 years ago, they had a really nasty virus that would go and reset the username and password. And
Remember that?
I mean, it was, and then what really stunk is once that exploit got done to a individual device, then it would scan private IPs and public and would infect tons more. And I couldn't tell you how many hours upon hours that I had remote workstations working on scanning networks once the tools came out to fix it, scanning those networks, and then to reboot them and to upgrade them, make sure that they were not affected. This kind of all goes back to proper management technique, is that whenever you have public internet and you have public IPs, whether IPv6 or v4, you need to have proper protection on those devices. Simple as that. And it doesn't matter if you deploy 10 or 100 a month or 500 a month, you still need to have them configured correctly so that only very specific people can get to them, things like that. And then you wouldn't have these problems.
Yeah.
So,
well, I found it interesting that the government was unplug power to your router and then turn it back on, and then they said upgrade your firmware. That is speaking total foreign, and that's foreign language to the subscribers, and also like being a brain surgeon. How do I do that?
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, that definitely does happen quite a bit where, hey, you need to reboot your router, and then they go, okay, well, I'm going to unplug the power strip from the outlet, and then I'm going to unplug everything from the power strip, and then how do I put it back together?
Yeah.
It definitely happens quite a bit, or more often than not. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So was there any other news out there other than that, Dennis?
No, I mean, Microtech has definitely come out. The WAP 60s and the LHG 60s, they're still on the way. We still don't have all of those. We do have some WAP 60s, I think, but
the long range gear.
Yeah. So all the 60 gigahertz stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and for the most part, we stock everything that as it comes out. So we pretty much order it right away and order significant quantities of it, or what we think is a decent quantity. That doesn't necessarily mean that will last or is there forever, if that makes sense. But we do that quite a bit. There's really hasn't been too much news. I think everybody is really waiting for WISPApalooza. I believe once WISPApalooza comes out, I think hopefully we'll have a couple new product announcements. Cambium has their EPMP 3000. That's really not going to be out until the end of the year as well. So there you go. I know Ubiquiti released their LTU product, which is their 5 gigahertz radio. I do know that some people are getting them, but I do know supplies are very limited in those particular instances. So the people who ordered, 200 or 300 right after the product announcement are just now getting theirs. So I do know that is pretty product limited as well, and I'm sure that's typical Ubiquiti. They're going to release a product, say you need to get it, and then they basically never ramp up production for about a year, and then they finally come out with the product as a Rev 2 or something like that, and then they actually fulfill it.
Right.
So
I think I ordered from you guys a Lighthead grid that's a little bit bigger. Have you heard of any performance increases out of that?
No,
It's
I don't.
almost the size of a 2-foot dish.
I do not know of that. It might be an MAMP 30.
Uh,
So it's probably not a lighthead grid. It's probably their Dyna dish or something like that.
gotcha.
So, the lighthead grid. I mean, the LHG, that is ultra thin wires on it. It is a mesh. It's literally a grid. And then Microtech also has their 30 dBi dish, which is a solid dish. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a big dish, and it does work quite well. It just it's a little bit more expensive to ship.
Right.
Well, it is significantly more expensive to
Well, it
ship based on
weighs more.
size. Yeah, yeah, and it weighs more. Yeah, and most of the LHG fives that we've been selling in the 3 packs, because they collapse down really nice into a 3 pack, and it makes it really cheap to ship it. So. And
Right.
most people are using them for CPEs anyway. So, and the
Hmm.
LHG 60s are the same form factor. So, I'm really looking forward to the LHG 60s and starting to sell them. I know some people already have some stock, and I know we placed our order a little later than other people, but we'll get them.
Cool. Well, if that's all you've got, we have an important guest on our show. His name is Claude Aiken, no relation to Chet Aiken, and he's the president and CEO of our organization, WISPA. That we Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Well, Claude, give us a little bit of your background for our listening audience, mostly WISP members. We just like to hear about where you came from and where you plan on going with our organization and what you plan on doing.
Yeah, no, I thank you
On.
for having me on, Dennis and Steve. It's great to be with you this morning, and it's really great to be a part of this great organization. I came from a policy background. I have worked at the FCC in various capacities for about the last 9.5 years. Uh, you know, a lot of work on rural broadband issues, which I know are very near and dear to the folks out in the field who are actually living this day to day. And I had been in the government for quite a while, and I saw this job with WISPA come up, and it was something that I just jumped at, because it's folks in DC have been hitting on the rural broadband issue for a long time. I was talking with you guys beforehand about this poster I have in the background of a rural broadband report that I worked on almost a decade ago, and we're still talking about it. And WISPs are folks who are out there who are they're small businesses. They're doing this with their own money, and they're not really recognized as much as they should be in DC. And I thought to myself, how could you not try to help these guys? So that was the main reason why I was so interested in the job, and thankfully the board brought me on board, and here I am, gotten thrown into some big policy battles right off the bat in CBRS, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about later. But at a high level, I think what I want to do for WISPA is along the lines of what I said before, is to just increase education about what WISPs are and what they do and what they need in the policy circles here in DC and in state houses across the country. There are a lot of very powerful interests here in DC that we're up against, and we're trying to figure out the best way to deal with that, and being able to get WISPs what they need to survive, primarily spectrum. And then, more broadly, just hearing from operators and vendors as to what they really want and need out of the organization, as far as education, cost saving opportunities to get together. So I'm out there a lot. I try to post on the members list and on the Facebook groups and all that, and my phone number's out there for folks who want to give me a call and give me some feedback. But I've been in the job about 2 months, and I've had the opportunity to visit and talk to some wonderful folks who are out there doing some great things, and I'm just glad to be here.
Where are you located out of?
So I'm just outside of DC. You almost kind of have to be in the mix on all of the DC policy stuff. You kind of have to be here. So that's where I've been and where I'll continue to be.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about CBR. What's your vision there? I mean, it sounds like you are intimately involved with what's been going on in this.
Yeah, I have been. That was one of the, WISPA's been incredibly engaged in CBRS to try to keep as much of the, policy in place that was there in 2015. Particularly in terms of license size areas and things of that nature, so folks like WISPs who are predominantly small businesses in rural areas, don't have to try to buy PEA size licenses in order to have a license at all. So we started out when I was on board. We were the FCC had basically said go forth and find an industry compromise, and we were casting about a little bit for a potential partner, and I was very grateful that through the work of the organization and some partnerships we were able to create, we've come up with a consensus plan that has just about everybody but the large cellular providers on board. You got cable, you got rural telcos, you got rural wireless, you've got organizations as diverse as the Port of Los Angeles to FedEx, supporting a plan that includes census tract size licenses for WISPs in the areas that count. So been glad that we've been able to pull that together. It's still, the jury's still out as to whether that will carry the day at the FCC, but I've been spending a lot of hours on it, and I'm hopeful about where we end up on this.
There we go. So, Claude, I have a question for you on
Sure.
the very specific CBRS stuff.
Yes.
One, we have obviously the policy is not written yet. So we don't know how they're going to try, how they're going to mitigate mini PALs, or using the PEA sizes, or using metropolitan sizes, or using some weird thing that they think that they need. Let's go back to the SAS. This kind of goes back to the... I'm just going to kind of do a split screen here. Here we go. This kind of goes back to the having our SAS system set up so that we, as WISPs and operators, can sit there and operate effectively. Now, there have been some scuttlebutt with the WISPA list, as well as several other places, that some of the costs are going to be pretty high for SAS operations. Now, first off, I want to make sure I tell everybody that if you have, it doesn't matter if you are purchasing a PAL or you're going to operate in GAA. GAA is basically the unlicensed. However, you still have to purchase SAS access to operate in GAA. So I know a lot of WISPs that they are sitting there going, hey, we're going to have our GAA, we're going to use that, we're not going to use anything else, and we'll just operate, freely. And whenever I sit there and I look at them, I go, well, that's fine, but the problem is that you still have to buy SAS access to be able to register the units, to be able to register the CPEs, and they're actually talking pretty expensive pricing. Now, what is WISPA's take on, let's just say pricing does get released that is fairly expensive? Is WISPA going to be able to help with that, or is that going to be a goal? Is that going to be one of your goals going forward?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think the short answer is yes. That's something that I'm definitely looking at going forward. I think first priority is trying to make sure we get the policy right. because if the policy's wrong, then heaven forbid that things go poorly. But if they do, then the spectrum isn't going to be quite as useful as we thought it would be for WISPs. But even in the GAA context, you're absolutely right that you're going to need to have two things. You're going to need to have your equipment that's registered with the SAS by a certified professional installer, and two, you're going to have to, as a result of that, have SAS access as a result of that as well. So, and those are two things that I'm looking at ways that WISPA can potentially help, either from a just smoothing the way for operators who want to use CBRS and are worried about the costs of a certified professional installer or the costs of a SAS. Some of the guys who are out there now are more focused on providing SAS access to the big cell codes, and those, you see that reflected in the pricing models. But I'm hopeful that at least among some subset of the SaaS providers that there's interest in working with the WISP community, and I've talked to a couple who actually are very interested in working with the WISP community to make sure that our needs are met as well, which is very encouraging. But the short answer is those are two things that I'm definitely looking at and hoping to see if we can move the ball forward as an association on behalf of the industry.
Gotcha. Now, what about the upcoming, I think it's 3.7 to 4.2?
Mm-hmm.
I know this has been some discussion about this. I know there's been some prelim, but they have not actually said if they're going to do anything with it yet, correct?
So the chairman of the FCC has actually said publicly that he is going to tee up a notice of proposed rulemaking in July on this issue, and that's something that we as WISPA are very encouraged about, because WISPA was one of the forming members of the Broadband Access Coalition, which was pushing for a rulemaking on this band to make a big chunk of it available for you've got some satellite Earth stations in there, but with appropriate protections, making it available for point to multipoint wireless across a big swath of that 3.7 to 4.2 spectrum. So the jury's still out on whether our proposal will be the lead proposal or just one thing that is the FCC seeks comment on, but that's something that the FCC seems to be moving forward on in the near future.
Gotcha. And is there any other potential mid-band spectrum? And when I say that, from, let's just say, from 2 gigahertz up to the 15 gigahertz, someplace in there where, when we look at 5 gigahertz, it has a really great performance, but it doesn't have a whole lot of tree penetration. So what we're really looking for is somewhere inside that band that gives us a lot of spectrum or a lot of speed, right, or we get enough speed that we can actually do something with, but it can go through trees, or we can power through trees.
Sure.
Is there anything else coming up that we need to be aware of, that you may call and say, hey, we actually need to file comments, we actually need to have action on those types of things?
Right.
I also, before we get to that, I also want to remind everybody on ispradio.com, we do have a chat box. If you have any questions, please ask. Go with that answer on any other frequencies coming.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Dennis. It's actually it's a very interesting time right now, because the FCC is taking a look at a lot of different mid-band spectrum. So they just teed up a notice of proposed rulemaking last month on EBS white spaces. So that's the 2.5 gigahertz, and sought comment on what it should do there, and that's something that I know some of our members actually have some of these licenses, and there are significant white spaces across the country where there that spectrum hasn't even been claimed and is just lying fallow. So we're very glad that the FCC is looking at that particular band, and we're trying to figure out what the best path forward is for our industry in terms of responding to that and what we should propose. So would be happy to hear from members on that issue. In addition, there's also 50 megahertz of spectrum at 4.9, which has historically been allocated to public safety use, but it's been pretty underutilized. I think the status, it's less than 3% of that spectrum has been utilized on a nationwide basis. So we as WISPA have been advocating in response to that notice of proposed rulemaking that be made available on a shared basis, so that WISPs can utilize that, and while still recognizing that there are legitimate public safety needs and that public safety should have priority, but that it's lying fallow, so why not let us go out there and use it. And then a little bit higher up, there's the 5.9 gigahertz band. Just last week, Commissioner O'Reilly and Commissioner Rosenworcel were at an event. They were talking about potentially using that for a new unlicensed band. So we'll see what happens on that front. There's not any imminent action by the FCC on that, but there is a lot of mid-band spectrum that the FCC is teeing up for consideration in the near future. And I should qualify that by saying that doesn't necessarily mean that will come available for commercial use in the very near term. Usually it takes the FCC a while to figure out the rules, and then if there's an auction, to figure out the rules for the auction. So, as far as CBRS goes, which is probably one of the most imminent FCC actions on the policy front, it'll still be probably a couple years before we see any auction of the CBRS PALs.
Well, it's fortunate that we as WISPA have a president that is intrinsically knowledgeable about all things FCC. What about day-to-day operations? You've been there about 2 months. What are you seeing that works well, and what needs to be a little bit cleaned up? And walking into a new organization as president CEO, what do you see in our organization?
So I'm seeing a lot of good things. I'm seeing a lot that I like. I have not had the opportunity to attend a WISPA America or WISPA Palooza, and I hear that those are fantastic experiences. So looking forward to getting to do that for the first time. And it's been great to. While I've been spending an inordinate amount of time on the policy stuff, it's been great to kind of slowly get to know the WISPA team. And, I would encourage our members to do the same. We got a great group of folks here who are focused on trying to, keep operators informed, keep them up to date, keep them educated, and to really try to help advance their businesses. But like I said, always open to feedback and thoughts about where folks are interested in going. One of the things that I've heard from a couple of folks that is sort of the it would be really helpful for new WISPs to have even just like a handbook or something like that of best practices of folks who've been out in the field and been doing this for years. I know that the community is really helpful, and I've been amazed to see how much folks will come alongside each other whenever there's a disaster or something of that nature. Like, people will drive for hundreds of miles just to help one another out, and I would like to continue to facilitate that and encourage more of that. The community and the camaraderie is unlike anything I've seen in any other subset of the ISP industry, which is really something that's great and really encouraging. But I'd also like to help folks to learn from folks who have gone before. I know that's happening in an ad hoc way, and I've heard from some folks that they'd like to see a little bit more of, like I said, like a handbook or something of that nature. So that's something that I'm looking at, seeing if we can move the ball forward. I know everybody's busy, but yeah, that's something that I've heard and I'm interested in looking at.
Yeah, if you're interested in that, I've heard it said, if you want something done, ask the person that's busiest.
Yeah,
Exactly.
always the way it works. Always.
So Dennis, write another book.
Yeah. Oh, just what I need to do. Another book.
Uh-huh.
Ooh. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll sign you up for it.
You mentioned something interesting that just now, being in the FCC and seeing all the other ISP industries and stuff like that. Would you say that no other, I'm not going to say industry, but group is as close or willing to help each other out as you would say our trade organization is? I mean, the companies don't step up to help each other out, right?
Yeah, it's a little tough to say because this is sort of my first time, like really inside the industry. So I've seen a lot of great people in different industries doing a lot of great things. But I will say that just from being active in the groups and on the WISP stuff, it is amazing to see how helpful folks are just in terms of providing advice and things that other folks might consider to be trade secrets or try to keep close to have a competitive advantage. Like folks will share and be open and really try recognize that we're kind of all in this together, trying to provide broadband to folks who don't have it, and in my mind that's really fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Dennis, anybody ask a question on the chat?
No, not yet. I am constantly monitoring it, but nothing coming up so far. We do have a number of viewers, and we like to thank all of our viewers for being here, but obviously we do need to kind of wrap up the show. I'm just trying to think of what else we got that we want to talk to Claude about, unless there's anything you want to talk about, Claude.
I think we kind of covered the beachfront here. Like I said, always happy to get feedback from members. WISPA is a great organization. We'd like to see more WISPs join and be a part of the WISPA community. And if always happy to come on again and chat if there's anything else that's pressing that y'all want to hear from me from. And thank you for the invitation. And if I don't see you before then, looking forward to seeing you at WISPApalooza.
Yeah, we'd love to have you on the show, maybe with Trina, to talk about the up and coming WISPApalooza show, maybe in a month and a half or so.
Sure.
But yeah, great talking with you. We appreciate you stepping up and joining the organization as our president and CEO. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't doubt that we're going to get a lot of things done, hopefully with a full-time person. And that was one of the reasons, WISPA should, one of the things that we needed in this industry was full-time people working for our industry. And I know that all the WISPA staff works extremely hard, and I wish to thank them for that. But having Claude here is definitely going to help us in that aspect. With that said, we do wish to remind you, and I'm actually going to bring this up here. This is the WISPApalooza page. If you go to WISPA.org, you will see the WISPApalooza page, and note it begins in 130 days, 22 hours. But WISPA 2018 does start. Let's see here. So we do need you to book your room. Book your room early. I couldn't sit there and tell you how many people wait until the last minute and then they complain that there's no rooms available and stuff like that. And it blows my mind how many people actually do that on a year by year by year basis. October 8th through the 12th in Las Vegas at the Rio. It's a great venue. If you have not been there, it is a great hotel. I very much enjoyed it. I will be there as well as pretty much everybody else. For the most part, if you are in the WISP industry at any which way, shape, or fashion, this is the big show. This is the one that you want to go to. Again, it comes up in October. Like I said, book your room as soon as possible because that will really help, one, our organization, because we do have a room block that we must fill. So we do want people to register early for WISPA. Book your room early for WISPA because that gives you the best discounts as well. As far as anything new for WISPA Palooza, that's actually a question that we actually got. One of the questions is anything new. Really, the format is pretty much set as it was last year. So I don't think that there's really going to be much new other than we do have more vendor space this year, considerably more. I believe, let me see if I can pull that up here. But we do have more vendor space, and the blocks, the areas are selling out very quickly. Let me pull that up onto our webpage or onto the live view.
I'd imagine they've already been sold out, no?
Not yet, but they are going. If you recall, last year we had diagonal rows, and the reason for that is because that actually facilitates a lot more flow and a lot more people can walk through. And it does not seem as cluttered. Now we've actually had to create aisles because we have that many people, coming into the show. So because of that, we have created that. So that's probably changed a little bit. But other than that, the food is going to be the same. The events, the sessions are still being planned out. We are still working on that. Actually, I'll be working on that tomorrow with the agenda committee. So that will happen fairly quickly. Let me see if we have the agenda committee timeline, because I think we should have something that actually lists when all of the events, all of the activities will be ready. So I'm going to go look at that and see if I can actually pull that up.
I think if you go ahead and pull it up, but I think we're trying to get a list of at least a high level list of the agenda out in the next few weeks, so that folks can see what we're looking at. There will be, as usual, new and relevant topics for folks in a variety of different verticals. Business, regulatory, HR, just nuts and bolts of how to improve your business.
Do you guys believe that it'll be of the same format of last year, the first part of the week, WISPA Palooza, and Thursday, Friday, Fiber Boot Camp, if you will?
Yeah.
For now, I think we're looking at a Fiber Friday again. So yeah, there'll be Master Monday, Fiber Friday, and then all the other sessions throughout
in
the
between.
week. Yeah,
cool. Yeah, that seemed to work well last year.
So it looks like most of the agenda will be locked in on August 2nd. However, I do believe that we're going to have most of that stuff, the majority of it, probably planned before, I'm assuming before July or right after the July 4th break. So we are definitely doing that. We're definitely working. We actually have some really great topic ideas for a business as well as finance and tech and marketing, things like that. We're definitely going to have a few odder tech tracks as well. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that they're going to be awesome tech tracks, but I think that they are. People are interested in these topics, whether or not they actually be really good topics. We'll have to try them out and see. So we're definitely working on that as well. So hopefully,
cool, willing to try something different.
Right, yeah. Right. And a lot of these sessions, not a lot of them, there are a number of sessions that we will continuously do because they are extremely well attended, because they are typically extremely valuable topics, and they're general topics that most
important to
need.
the industry.
Right. They
Oh,
are
yeah.
important to the industry. So with that said, again, the as Trina is saying that there will be a preliminary agenda before the first price increase, and I do not know when the first price increase is. So if you are planning on going to WISPApalooza, you need to register and book your room now. Simple as that. So, and I think we're going to try to get Trina on here in a few weeks and have her talk about the show. Hopefully, once the agenda gets locked in. I know I've seen some comments on Facebook of, "Hey, when's the agenda going to be locked? I mean, should I be attending?" And the overwhelming response is, it doesn't matter what the agenda is. You need to go for all 5 days. You need to go because you're going to miss something, and you will get a lot of information. And I always sit there and tell people this, is that if you've never been to WISPApalooza, you will learn probably more talking with your peers than in the sessions. Now, that is a general statement. I do know plenty of people that learn a lot from going to the agendas as well. But you will learn the little tricks, the little doomafidgies that most people don't learn in an organized training class. So definitely get there and book your room, book your registration. Do that sooner rather than later. So, there is a additional charge for the awards dinner, just so everybody knows this year. That is another change.
$30.
What was that?
$30.
Yeah, $30. Yeah. So not too terribly horrible or anything like that, but definitely informational for people and such. So, alrighty. I am asking. I'll put out a final call here. Any questions? I can't type. Questions for Claude. I will definitely put a questions pane up there and ask final time for any last questions, etc.
Well, I think that should wrap up our show. I want to thank Claude Aiken for being with us. He's the president and CEO of WISPA, and I want to thank Dennis for hosting and producing the show with me, and look forward to having Claude on again. And like we said, hopefully we get Trina and Claude together closer we get to WISPApalooza to talk a little bit more about the show, about booking your room and what the costs are and where to sign up and such. It's a really good trade show, just like Dennis says. You will regret not going, believe me.
Yeah.
Well, if that's it and there's no other questions, Dennis, if you'd wrap us up, that'd be great.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to ISP Radio. We hope you've gained new insights and additional wisdom in our industry as well as your business. Please remember to visit our show sponsors via the links on ispradio.com. If you're interested in becoming a show sponsor, contact us at sales@ispradio.com. Now go out there and push those packets as fast as you can. Good luck and Godspeed.